Hey, this is Jamie with Stonemeyer Games, and I am trying Facebook Live's new format for the first time. It threw me off a little bit this morning. So hopefully this is working. The layout is a little different than before, so I think I need to orient my camera so I'm not looking away. Okay, hopefully that should work. Sorry, this will take a little bit of adjustment. All right, there. We're close enough there, I think. Yeah, I hope you're doing well today. And feel free to comment real quick if you don't mind so I can make sure the comments are working. Everything is shifted around a little bit. Always throws me off when Facebook changes up something like this, but I'm sure their intentions are good. There we go. I see a comment from Joshua, so it does look like it, and Carol as well. So looks like comments are working. I'll be looking over in the opposite direction for comments now. Yeah, that's going to take some adjustment, but that's fine. Let's jump right in and get to today's chocolate of the day. An unopened chocolate bar that I'm hopefully saving for later. This is a Nut Joe bar. We had a little fun last week where we do this thing. We subscribe to this international treat box called it's called Universal Yums. And over the last few months, whenever we have one of these boxes, we usually really, really like a few of the treats in the box, and we wish we could buy them directly from the company. And we found out after our latest treat box date night that you can buy these special treats directly from Universal Yums. And so we went through and kind of loaded up a big box of treats of all sorts of stuff that will hopefully last us a couple months of fun international treats. And this was one of them. I think this was from Belgium, but I'm not quite sure. But this was one of my favorite. Oh, Austria. This is Austria. This is a really delicious one. So what is your chocolate or treat of the day today? What else are we talking about today? So Rolling Realms. You may know I've been working on, well, not really working on it, but I've been playing around with a game that I designed a few weeks ago, a roll and write game that infinitely scales that I can play on camera, play with people around the world, and there's no interaction, so it just scales up. And version 8 I'm going to be putting online today, along with some fan-created versions of the Scythe realm and the Wingspan realm, with the intent of playing it either on Thursday or Friday of this week. If you have a preference, feel free to state it in the comments. I'm leaning towards Friday, but I could probably do Thursday afternoon or even Thursday morning. We'll see. To play Rolling Realms with you, the latest version, along with these fan-created realms. I want you to try them. I want to try them to see how they work, to see if they are better replacements for the current realms that I have. But I've also made some tweaks to a few of the existing realms, including Scythe and My Little Scythe. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And if you have any preference as to when I do the next one, feel free to let me know in the comments. Joshua says that his chocolate of the day is the largest Hershey's Special Dark bar he's ever had. That's great. Yeah, so that is one of the little things I've been working on. Today is also finance day. I've been doing a lot of going through our bookkeeping, our monthly finances. Joe has been a huge help with that. I also need to pay royalties to our designers. We pay our designers on a monthly basis based on revenue earned the previous month. So like right now, I'll be paying royalties to our designers for revenue earned in March. So that's one of my favorite things. That's probably my favorite part of the finance bookkeeping process, that I get to not reward, but pay essentially the designers for their hard work for the games that they worked on. Gerald has a question. He says, "Are you able to use the Red Rising IP, or you've rethemed your design?" I appreciate you asking about that. It's kind of an influx. It's a work in process, or we'll see what happens. I'm not really sure exactly yet what will happen with that. I have most importantly, I'm still a Red Rising fan. I love the book series. I enjoyed book 5, which was the most recent book to come out, and I have been working on a potential design for it if we are able to someday get the IP for it. But if not, we'll probably, as you said, retheme it to something else. Chris says he's on Game 7 of Charterstone. I'm curious I think Chris is playing the tabletop version of it, or any of you playing the digital version of Charterstone that was released almost 2 weeks ago now. It's been out there for 2 weeks. And actually, Paul just mentioned that. He said he recently picked up Charterstone thanks to the app. And he says he's enjoying it. That's great to hear, Paul. Tonight at game night. So last night I tried my first Zoom hosted game night. I've hosted weekly Wednesday game nights in person for years, and we've been a little bit limited due to social distancing. So I tried it over Zoom last week. It worked out great. And we played Ink and Gold, On Tour, and Rolling Realms. And this week we're going to play Just One and Cartographers using a little Google Doc version of Cartographers plus my copy that I own. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be really cool to play using a Google Doc. I haven't tried that with a game before. So we'll see how that goes. And I've also been playing, I tried some digital games over the last couple of days because my upcoming Sunday sit-down video is about digital ports of tabletop games. And so I played Shards of Infinity and the Lord of the Rings LCG in digital format this past week. Had a good time with that. I'd recommend both of them. I'm really enjoying Shards of Infinity, enough so that I bought the tabletop version and the campaign version of that so Megan and I can play through that. I also recently bought the Forgotten Waters. I was part of the Forgotten Waters pre-order with Plaid Hat Games. I'm looking forward to getting that. And I also bought a few games recently. We've been looking for like kind of campaign ongoing games to play with Megan and I. And the other one I got was Machikoro Legacy. So I'm looking forward to trying that. Looking over here at comments real quick. Jacob says, will more of your games go digital like Scythe? Yeah, Jacob, so we have 9 games, and so far 3 of them are available in full AI digital format. Those would be Scythe, as you mentioned, Between Two Castles, and Charterstone. In the works, we have Viticulture, we have Wingspan, and Tapestry are the 3 in the works right now. I don't think Between Two Cities or Euphoria or My Little Scythe are in the works, although there is kind of an online version of Euphoria that you can play. It's on our website. You can see all of our drop-down menus for our games have digital versions listed there, but only 3 of them are full AI at this point. Isaac says, did you try Sagrada Digital yet? I haven't tried that. I trust it to be very good, but I have Sagrada, the tabletop version, and I love that so much that I don't know if I need the digital version of that. And that's one that plays really well 2 players, so it's not like I'm lacking for playing that one whenever I'm in the mood. But I have heard great things about it. I saw Dusty posted about it the other day as well. Dusty, who does the Mill fan channel for Stonemaier Games. Joshua says, did you enjoy Journeys in Middle-earth better than Mansions of Madness? It's a good question. I mean, they're very similar. They're both app-driven. So I played multiple scenarios of Mansions of Madness, and I think I enjoyed them more. Each one was really weird and different, although I can't speak to it completely because I only played one scenario of Journeys in Middle-earth. In Mansions of Madness, basically in these types of games, I enjoy it when it's not all combat. I enjoy it when there's mysteries to solve, when there's weird things happening that you have to figure out and kind of puzzle your way out of. And so I that's my preference in that style of game, not just let's get beat up and try to beat up all the bad guys. So I'm sure that changes from scenario to scenario with Journeys in Middle-earth, but I didn't experience that in my only play of it, while I have experienced that in Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition. Chris says, have I played Truck Off Raw yet? No, I have not played that yet. I haven't even actually heard of that. Just scrolling down here to see if there are any other questions. Roshni says, what are good Tabletopia games to play remotely? I think at this point, all of our games are available on Tabletopia. So feel free to check out your favorite Stonemaier game is probably on Tabletopia. Feel free to check that out. Edgar says, can I give hints on the expansion for Tapestry? Yeah, we have made very good progress on the first expansion for Tapestry. I'll say mostly it is a more stuff expansion. There are some new things, new twists on existing things, and a new type of card that we're incorporating, but mostly it's a more stuff expansion. There's a pretty big hint right there. Chris says, how about My Little Scythe in digital form? I think it would be great. I would love for a company to be interested in My Little Scythe in digital format. I think it would be a lot of fun. I just need to find a company that would work on it. Gerald says, have I tried Morton's favorite game, Dawn of the Zeds? I have not tried that. Morton is he leads Team Automa, the solo team for Stonemaier Games, and but I haven't tried. I'm guessing it's a solo game, and no, I haven't tried that. Looks like Steven tried his first Scythe experience on Tabletop Simulator. Nice. So my Sunday sit down video this past week was about games that have hidden visual clues in them. This is one of my favorite mechanisms in games, where you really have to use your eyes to find important information in the art that you're looking at. It makes the art have I love beautiful art, but it adds even more meaning to the art when you really have to look at it, when the art is important. And so that was a fun video to do, and I totally left out. I feel bad. I left out Chronicles of Crime, which is a game where you definitely need to look at the art and gain information from it, and I totally forgot it for the list. I feel really bad about that. But if you like games where you have to look for clues, hidden information in the art, you might check out that video. Other posts I did recently are... I'm a little distracted here. I'm sorry, because the new Facebook Live, it just scrolls constantly. The comments scroll constantly, so it doesn't pause on the last comment that I read, which is a little annoying. So I have to scroll back up to see what I missed. It is what it is. Yeah, that totally distracted me. Okay, other blog posts I wrote recently. I posted about the April Fool's results. So the products that we had for April Fool's, the magnifying glass. These are real products that are on our website, and the chocolate colored trays for Wingspan eggs and other tokens. Those are still on our website. I posted the results. They were basically, we sold less than I thought we would, which isn't ideal, but we were still able to contribute significantly, I think, to people who are really suffering right now due to the economic impact of the coronavirus, which was great. I was glad we were able to do that. And hopefully over time, we'll sell these fun products to people. All right, let me see where the comments paused here. Al says, have I tried Hero Realms? The campaign is good and challenging. I have not. We'll have to try that soon. I have played Hero Realms. I've played the game, but I have not played the campaign. And it's been a while since I played the game. But I'll have to give it a try. I like the idea of a campaign. We've been basically looking for good campaign games to play with 2 players. So we'll give that a try. There is, as I mentioned, the Shards of Infinity has a campaign, a cooperative campaign, which I'm very curious to try, especially since I've only been playing Shards of Infinity against the AI as a dueling game. Jeremy says, do you play any miniatures games? No, I don't. And I'm sorry, if I do miss a question, just let me know. Oh yeah, there was a question about if there will be a second expansion for Wingspan, and yes, we've already actually announced that it'll be based in Oceania, Australia, New Zealand, that area of the world. Sean says, any more expansions for Scythe Online in the works? I believe they're working on... No, they already have Invaders from Afar. I believe they're working on the Wind Gambit. Or maybe Scythe Encounters. Scythe Encounters is the easiest one I think they could add. But I think they're working on the Wind Gambit right now. It's completely independent of me, though. I get updates the same way that you get updates from the digital team. Cody says, what are my thoughts on inserts and organizers for your games? So I guess there are a couple different angles here. One, the main angle is that I am happy when any third-party accessory company makes something cool for our games. We have an agreement that we ask them to sign that basically says that they won't pretend that it's an official Stonemaier product. But beyond that, we don't ask for royalties or anything like that, because I want them to be able to keep their prices as low as possible for you. And I love that people, companies and individuals are applying their creativity to our games. So I love when companies do that kind of thing. In terms of my personal use, I generally try to make to publish functional inserts so that you don't necessarily need a special tray or organizer for your game. I know that there's always an enhancement, like even in our nicest inserts, like Euphoria, My Little Scythe, there's probably a company that could do it even better. But we try our best to make a really nice insert and organizational methods for our games inside the box, so you don't necessarily have to go and buy another one. Ephraim says, will there be a reprint of Between Two Cities? Yes, it is actually on the boat right now to our various fulfillment centers, so it should be available very soon. In fact, I should probably note that on my e-newsletter. Thank you for mentioning that, because I don't know if I have that mentioned. Yeah, I don't think I have that. Between Two Cities. Yeah, along with the Scythe metal coins. Both of those we've kind of struggled to keep in stock recently. Gerald says, have sales started to slow down since the recent upswing? Direct online sales for us have continued to be very strong. I say that somewhat guiltily because I know that retailers are suffering quite a bit right now. But I do love that retailers are offering delivery, curbside pickup, things like that. But yeah, our sales continue to be pretty good right now. I imagine it will change over time as people's budgets tighten quite a bit. But right now they're doing pretty well. Matthew says, are there any plans for more civilization adjustments? Are you happy, or am I happy with the way it is now? I think we came with the recent adjustments. I think we came to a pretty good balance based on all the data that we had. It's something that we'll continue to look at over time, but I don't foresee us making any changes to the original civilizations other than the current adjustment guide, unless we see something that really emerges as being even more overpowered than we thought based on the data that we've received. Yeah. David says, what are my thoughts on the new Crossroads game, Forgotten Waters? Yeah, that was one that I recently pre-ordered. I haven't received my copy yet. I don't know when they're due to arrive, but it looks really cool. And it's the type of game that I'm looking for right now. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out. And I intentionally avoided, I saw the Dice Tower had a review about it yesterday. I intentionally avoided that because I already bought it and I know I'm going to play it. And I'm already excited about it. What else did I play recently? Megan and I played Isle of Cats the other day. She crushed me at Isle of Cats. And I played Slay the Spire. A bunch of people have been recommending that in terms of deck building games and games to play online. It's not a tabletop game, but it was a really good game. I could see it being very addicting. And so I kind of cut myself off after playing it a little bit. But I really enjoyed my play of it. Excellent. Really, really good game. Pedro says, due to recent events, will Scythe Mobile be delayed? Not that I'm aware of. As far as I know, I don't think it's taken a while for Scythe Mobile to be available anyway. And I think you're referring to Scythe iOS specifically. They might be working on an Android version. I'm not sure, but I don't think the coronavirus is really having an impact on it because the developers can largely work from home. Steven says, would Charterstone be light enough to buy for my parents who are isolating? They play games like Azul, Ticket to Ride, and can play Viticulture. Teaching them Scythe nearly killed me, though. Charterstone is tricky. Like it starts off very basic. It's meant to onboard you very easily into the game. However, you have to be good at reading rules, basically, because the game unravels the rules for you, and so you have to be very careful about what you read. If you miss a line, it can make you miss a big part of the game. And so it depends on how good your parents are at learning the game, even a game that has a tutorial, because that's essentially what it is. It gives you a few rules to understand, and then it unravels the game card by card. So I would be a little hesitant there for Charterstone. You might maybe get them to try the digital app first and see if that works for them. And then if they enjoy it, they could try the tabletop version. That might be a good way to test it. Ephraim says he would love to see me with Tom Vassell in their daily chat. Tom's in Florida. I'm in St. Louis, so it might be a little hard for me to join him over there unless he's doing remote chats. Isaac says, do you have a favorite of the Tiny Epic series? I just played Tiny Epic Tactics and really enjoyed it. I think my favorite is probably Tiny Epic Galaxies of the bunch. Yeah. What else have I been talking about? Oh, I talked about anniversary editions on my blog post the other day. That was a topic that actually came up from one of you on one of my live casts maybe a week or so ago. And so I wanted to explore that topic more in detail about the idea of anniversary editions in games, and seeing what people thought. Like if people are more likely to buy anniversary editions if they already own the game and are already a big fan and maybe have played their game to the point that it's worn out, the original, versus people who are new to the game and are excited about it. They're finding out about the game and the game's longevity through the anniversary edition and get it that way. It isn't really a strategy that I've considered for Stonemaier games, but it was an interesting topic. I thought, so thank you whoever brought that up and for inspiring that blog post. David says, would I consider a storytelling game that isn't done through a legacy format? Maybe this is what Codename Wind is about. I don't know if I even have a Codename Wind. Yeah, I mean, I have been exploring different ways for narratives to happen in games. Even in Tapestry. Tapestry is a game where you are telling the story of your civilization in a way that isn't hampered by real-world history. You aren't trying to recreate real-world history at all. And so that is one form of narrative in a game. There's also a game that I'm working on that incorporates narrative in a different way and storytelling in a different way. And we'll continue to do that with different games. I love exploring different ways to create narratives, and whether they're printed text or images, or if they're player creative narrative, like emergent narratives. I love both of them. Looking at my little notes here to see what else I had to talk about today. One thing that we've been doing recently is I've been limited in terms of how I can playtest games that we're working on, games and expansions. And so there's a friend of mine who's unable to do his normal job right now. And so I've kind of hired him temporarily to create Tabletopia versions, private versions. So you're not going to be able to see these, but private versions of certain expansions that we're working on, certain games, so that we can playtest remotely, which is weird that even local playtesting right now I can't do because of social distancing and the coronavirus. And so we're turning to Tabletopia to do that. So I'm glad that there is an interface like that. It isn't ideal. That isn't my preferred way to playtest locally, but it's all we have right now. So we're going to give that a shot. I've also been working a lot with localization partners on reprints. This is generally the time of the year where we start to think about the holiday season. And so we need to start production fairly soon if we want to make sure that games are available in November and December. We have to think that far ahead for that season. So I think it'll be a weird season this year because I think cash is short for certain companies. Say the future is uncertain for some of these partners. And so they are very much guessing, as we always do. We're guessing as to what the demand will be for the future. And so it's an interesting time to hear what localization partners want us to make or don't want us to make. Nathan says, is Charterstone a good 2-player legacy game, or is it best at 4? You're asking the most biased person in the world. I mean, I definitely designed it to be a lot of fun for 2 to 6 players, and Morton designed it to be a lot of fun for 1 player. So I think it works great at all player counts 2 through 6, but I am heavily biased on that. So perhaps someone else can answer that question. Kyle says, any news or thoughts on the Stonemaier LCG, the living card game or some sort of living game involving that I would design. And it's been interesting. I have been working on it. It's been an interesting constraint, and not always good. I would say a challenging constraint to make it an LCG rather than just a game that is fun and works on its own. And so lately I've been more leaning towards the side of just making the best game possible. And if it happens to be in an LCG format, awesome. If not, I'm not going to pursue it. I just want to make the most fun game possible. And LCGs, it's such a weird format because you're designing something that is inherently incomplete, that will be expanded upon, and that is not how I design. I can't design something that is like that. That's just not how I work. And I definitely I'm not used to designing anything that needs to be that you need to start playing before you actually start playing. By that I mean like some element of deck construction, which seems to be a core value of what an LCG is. That in advance, whether it's as you sit down to play the game or in advance, that you somehow are working on your own personal deck, which insinuates that you need to maybe buy some things that other people don't buy. Even in a cooperative version, that can be the case. And so that has been a challenge as well. That I'm not entirely comfortable with that. I want to design a game that that you only need one copy of it for your group, that you don't need to have everyone buying different pieces of it at different times. So that's been a major constraint as well. And I've kind of started to let go of that constraint and just focus on making the most fun game that fits into our principles. So it's possible it'll happen, but I think it's also very likely at this point that it will just end up being maybe a deck building game. An innovative, a new one, an innovative one, a unique deck building game at that, but not necessarily an LCG, a living card game. Christian says, what's my username on Yucata? I am not on Yucata, I don't think. If I am, my username is generally Jamie Stegmeyer or Jamie.Stegmeyer, but I don't think I'm on there. Shaked says, anything new that you can tell us about the open world Zelda-like game that you're making? Yeah, so I have been working on an open world cooperative game inspired by Zelda Breath of the Wild. It is not a Zelda game. It's just inspired by the openness and exploration and discovery of Breath of the Wild. And at this point, I can just say that I am still excited to be working on it. It is a massive project. It will continue to take quite a bit of time, but I have fun every day that I have time to work on it. Matt says, he has a question about rolling realms. Would you consider roll 3 dice, choose 2 to resolve? 3 resources can then be simpler. Let's see. Roll 3 dice, choose 2 to resolve. I don't know. I like the constraint of having 2. It's worth trying. You can try it and see if you have more fun with it. But originally in Rolling Realms, you rolled 2 dice and you only used 1. And we found almost immediately that it felt like you were wasting something. There was a resource there that you were not allowed to use, and it felt weird. So I have a feeling that what you're saying here would feel the same way, that you'd be like, oh, I wish I could really use that 3rd die, and you can't. So it's like the game is taking something away from you. Ephraim says, has anyone approached me to make Scythe a movie or a series? Yeah, we get producers all the time, actually, that approach me. And my answer is, I don't have those rights. I have the tabletop rights. And so I refer them to Jakob, and Jakob has conversations with them. So maybe someday it'll happen, but it's not something that I am involved with. I'm here to kind of look out for Jakob, but they're not my rights to really discuss with production companies. Frank says, Frank, I just mentioned that I was playing Isle of Cats. Frank says, how has the experience of Rolling Realms been? Do you think you'll do more playtesting in this forum? It's been great to watch and be involved in. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a nice little project. I think as long as people understand that it is just kind of a very little side project. It's something I'm doing fun for people around the world who are looking to connect with other people right now. It is not a major priority for Stonemaier Games. So when people are asking me to maybe do, I don't know, to spend a little more time on it than I intended, that hasn't been, I can't really do that. I have to focus on running the company. However, that said, I have enjoyed it. It has been fun to iterate in real time with people around the world. And I have been working on version 8. And so version 8 will go live in a few hours, and I'll probably do the live teach and play either tomorrow or Friday. Yeah. But I've had a good time with it, Frank. I don't know if it's something, if you're looking for, if you have similar goals or you are looking to connect with people through a living design like that, I'd recommend it. I've had a lot of fun with it. Al says, have my playtesting sessions been impacted by COVID-19? Yeah, I'm probably catching up on comments right now, but it has. And so that's why we're going to need to turn to Tabletopia to keep that local playtesting going. He says, also, has the lockdown made you think more about developing games that will play well remotely or other design elements that you wouldn't have thought through had this crisis not happened? Not really, no. I haven't. I mean, I remain in the hopes that we'll beat this, basically, and that we will not be living a remote life far into the future. And so with that in mind, no, I haven't let it impact my designs. All of our games, other than Rolling Realms, have quite a bit of interaction with them. Not necessarily conflict, but there are many reasons that they don't work. They don't work remotely because you have to pay attention to other players. You're using common resources, things like that. So I like that form of interaction. I like positive interaction. I like any reason to pay attention to other players and games, and that is not conducive for remote games that scale infinitely. Kevin says, "What's the latest on Project Sand?" You can see the progress chart on our e-newsletter. It's on our e-newsletter page on our website, and that's really all I talk about in terms of unannounced games at this point. The information that you can see on that e-newsletter. So right now, I think what it's saying is that it's in pre-production. Raymond says, have I been watching Tales from the Loop on Amazon? Feels a little bit like Scythe. I haven't. I didn't read really great reviews about it. I love the visuals of that world, but I didn't read great reviews about the actual the content, the series itself. But if you recommend it, maybe I just read one or two reviews. So if you recommend it, let me know and I'll check it out. Michael also says, "This is a different Michael." No, yeah. Michael says, "How much is the current world crisis going to push back releases and so forth?" So far, I don't think it'll have any impact on Stonemaier Games. There was a game that we've been working on that experienced a slight delay because of the extended Chinese New Year, but it was pretty slight. So at this point, I don't see them impacting our releases, but that could change over time, especially if retailers and distribution are interrupted and disrupted for a prolonged period of time. Mondo says, "Do I think the cancellation of so many conventions will change how publishers acquire new designs for the near future, since face-to-face meetings will be less common?" It's certainly possible, although I think publishers have probably been moving, not necessarily away from that, but they've been accepting submissions in other ways for quite some time. So I don't know if conventions were necessarily an integral part of that process in 2020 anyway. They're a part of it, maybe not the entire part of it. So I think it's pretty easy to switch that over to digital, whether it's live or I often, if we get far enough, if we're intrigued by a game, sometimes we'll ask the designer to just film a session of them playing it so we can see what the game looks like being played before we commit the time and resources to actually learn the rules and have them send us the game and all that. Cody says, "Out of your upcoming projects, how many are designed by you and how many are designed by others like Elizabeth?" Let's see, of projects that are in the works, we have one that's designed by another, two by other designers, one that's a co-design between, actually, no, two that are co-designs, and two, these are all new games, two that are designed just by me. Yeah, I think that's about right. And then some expansions that are collaborative efforts. Yeah, co-designs. Gerald says, Scythe is clearly a hybrid, but an interesting post on a game group showed that Ameritrash gamers think Pandemic is an Ameritrash game and Euro gamers think it's a Euro. It can be played both ways. Are you aware of any other games like this? That's interesting. That's an interesting perspective that, to me, is very much a Euro. There are elements of variability in it, but it's a game with pretty high player agency, not a lot of output randomness. That's interesting. I guess I can see that perspective. Am I aware of any other games like this? I've always kind of said that Kemet, I think, is the classic game. Kemet is Kemet, if you haven't heard of it. It's a classic mash of the two, where there are where it kind of feels like an Amerithrash game, but there's a ton of it's largely driven by player agency and player decisions, almost entirely. And so that to me is kind of the ideal version for me of an Amerithrash game, one where there's story and narrative through what the players are doing. There's lots of interaction, but there's a high level of player agency. You're not randomly rolling dice to determine results, which has always baffled me as to why people think that's thematic. That rolling dice is synonymous with the thematic element of a game. There is luck and randomness in the real world, but I don't know if dice are the best simulation for that. Dice are great. Dice can be a lot of fun, but I don't see them as a thematic element necessarily of a game. Stephanie says, is anything coming out for Tapestry? Yeah, Stephanie, we haven't really announced it yet, but on our progress chart, we have shown that we've made significant progress on the first Tapestry expansion, and that is certainly on track for a 2020 release. I don't know exactly when yet. I don't know when we'll officially announce it, but that is going very well right now. Just scrolling down, looking for questions right now. Actually, let me recap real quick what I've talked about in case you want to come back to any of these topics. Games I played recently are Slay the Spire, Shards of Infinity, Lords of the Ring, LCG digital version, Isle of Cats, On Tour, Rolling Realms, Ink and Gold. Tonight at game night, we'll play Just One and Cartographers, both remotely. My video recently was about hidden visual clues in games, and blog posts were about results of our April Fool's products and anniversary editions of games. And lately I've been working on reprints of our games with localization partners, like in different languages of our games, putting our games on Tabletopia, or putting playtest prototypes of our games on Tabletopia so we can continue with local playtesting. And that the next version of Rolling Realms that will be revealed today, version 8, along with some fan versions of those realms for us to test on either Thursday or Friday of this week. I'll jump back over to questions for the remainder of this little chat here. Adam says, did My Little Scythe open new doors for you for lighter games? Any plans to make more family or children's games? Definitely not children's games, but I certainly am open to making. I want to make games that parents can play with their kids, for sure. That would be a family game, in my opinion. In terms of lighter games, My Little Scythe and Between Two Cities are probably the two lightest games that we would make. I'm generally looking for event games that at least take up 45 minutes, ideally in the 45 to 90 minute range. It feels like the meat of your game night. You get a pretty substantial experience when you sit down and play it. Nothing against filler games or lighter games, but it just isn't our core focus. But you never know. A game could come along and completely wow me, and if it somehow got through our submission process despite appearing lighter, it is possible that a game could wow me and that we would publish it, even though it's a little bit outside of what we typically look for. George says, how is my Charterstone campaign going? Unfortunately, it has completely stalled. So I started playing a campaign with some friends who hadn't played it before coronavirus got big. And our last play was maybe 3 weeks ago. 5-player game. We just finished game 6, and we've had to stop because we can't meet and play with each other. So I'm looking forward to continuing that, but it's going to be a while before I think we can. Joshua says, will I show us Airship Kai here live? Sure, why not? So I've got My Little Scythe. I've got the expansion behind me. I've been revealing, or Hobie and I have been revealing more about it every day. And I will show you the airship. In fact, you'll get to see the secret of the airship, which is in order to make it fit into the box, into the insert, because this is really important. We made such a big investment in the nice insert for My Little Scythe that we wanted the expansion to fit into the insert. So the airship is actually 2 parts. It comes together to form Airship Kai. And you can see it's pretty big in comparison to like one of the dice in the game. Here's a die, here's Airship Kai. This is the airship for the My Little Scythe expansion. And there's just one. All players are controlling this one airship. On your turn, you can move it with a certain action, or you cannot. It's up to you. Yeah, so that's a surprise reveal. That's what you get when you're talking to me live. I do stuff I probably shouldn't do yet, but we've kind of shown what the airship looks like. I just haven't shown that it actually comes apart in the box. Aaron says that Wingspan is helping him get through self-quarantining. I'm glad to hear that. I love that games can do that, can help us get through these tough times, at least part of them. They can't solve these tough times, but they can help us get through them. Ephraim says, any plans on adding a pterodactyl card on Wingspan? That would have been a great April Fool's idea. Maybe next year we'll do something like that. One of the sillier promo pack ideas that have come up, like extinct birds, fictional birds, things like that, fictional winged creatures. Maybe we'll do something like that for April Fool's next year. Daniel says, have I had the chance to play Terramara? It has an awesome play on the worker placement mechanism, but I'm not thrilled with the art design. Can art be a deal breaker for you in gaming? I haven't played that game. No, Terramara. Can art be a deal breaker for me in gaming? It can certainly hurt. Yeah, I mean, there are games that maybe I'm not drawn to because of the art and maybe don't give a first try because of the art. There are also games where they were kind of forced in front of me and I was like, okay, I'll give this game a try. And despite the art, I ended up loving the game. So that has definitely happened. But it's for an art if a game has art that I'm just not drawn to, that can be a deterrent for me from trying it in the first place. Frank says, why all your games have always so much luck factor? So much luck factor. I don't know. I don't think about my games that way. I think my games have a lot of variability and a lot of player agency. They do have some randomness. There are card decks that you're drawing blind from in games like Viticulture has some blind card draws. Tapestry has some blind card draws. But the way we mitigate that is that in both Viticulture and Tapestry, you are drawing a lot of cards. A big part of the game is choosing not like which card to draw, but which card to play from the abundance of cards that you have in your hand. So I don't really consider that luck, Frank. I consider that giving players an abundance of choices and leaving it for the players to make the best choice. So you're not really relying on luck when you decide which card to play. That's your choice. That's player agency. Jeff says, have I considered doing a group party game? I've toyed around with the idea a little bit as a designer. I think it's an interesting design challenge, but it's so far outside of what Stonemaier Games typically publishes that it's probably not something that we would do. Stephanie says, just wanted to tell you how much I enjoy every game you put out. Oh, thank you, Stephanie. That's really nice to hear. Adam says, is it trash, like Ameritrash or Amerithrash? I prefer Amerithrash. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with saying Ameritrash, but I prefer Amerithrash. They mean the same thing. Scott says, what online platform are you using to play games? We've been using Zoom for game nights, or at least we just started last week. So last week and this week we'll be using Zoom. I signed up for a pro account temporarily just so I could host games for multiple people for longer than 40 minutes. And it was only like $15 for the month. So it's worked out well so far. Al says, as both a designer and a publisher, do you have an aspect of your business that you enjoy doing more than others? You have, let me answer that first. You have another question here too. But is there an aspect of my business that I enjoy more than others? Yeah, it's all on a scale. So I enjoy most of the things I do quite a bit. There are other things that I don't enjoy as much. But you asked, what do I enjoy more than the others? What is my favorite thing to do? Designing games is still probably the most fun thing I do, but I really do enjoy also developing games with other people, helping other designers develop their games that we're going to publish, co-designing games. I enjoy the customer interactions. I enjoy the marketing, the puzzle of marketing and communications. I enjoy writing the blog post and doing videos and creating content that is not game content, but is hopefully valuable to people. Yeah, I enjoy a lot of the different things that I do. I would say most of all, I enjoy the variety. That's what keeps me going every day, I think. Al also says, you've highlighted many times that designing games was a passion of yours since a young age. Yeah, since I was around 7 or 8 years old. With submissions adding to your pool of game releases, are you designing less now than you would like? Sometimes I feel that way. Yesterday I felt that way a little bit. I liked it. Ideally, especially with Joe doing so much great work for us now, I would love to spend a few hours on game design or at least game development every day. And that doesn't always happen. Yesterday was one of those days where I just had so much to do with business stuff, operations. I didn't have time. So it isn't related to the submissions. It's more related to just having a business to run. Yeah. Michael says, do you ever find stalled legacy games are challenging to get back to the table if too much time has passed? We find it tough to pick up the thread again. Yeah, I can totally see that. It's like if you read half of a novel and then you put it down for a year, you're going to totally forget what you were reading before. You might have to completely reread it. And yeah, that's a big challenge with legacy games. It's one of the reasons why I'm only designing one legacy game. And with any other games I have that tell an ongoing story, they're going to tell that story in a little bit of a different way. So you don't have to remember so much information from session to session in case those sessions are separated by many months. Yeah. Carol says, would you recommend the Lord of the Rings LCG online? I've never played an LCG and I'm curious to try one, and she loves Lord of the Rings. So I will say this. I had a lot of fun playing it. It was essentially a cooperative dueling game. Megan had her computer set up over in the other room. I had my computer in here, and we played against Sauron. And we had a lot of fun with it. I will say that it didn't really feel like an LCG because we weren't building anything. Maybe that element will come in later. I don't think we've really explored that. We probably should, in terms of like cultivating our decks and putting cards in our decks, taking cards out of our decks. We haven't really explored that element of it. So I can't speak to the LCG element of it, but in terms of the core gameplay, I think it's certainly worth trying, especially if you have someone else that you can play with in your same house or remotely who you can play along with. I think that element was particularly fun for me. As a dueling game, it was fine. As a cooperative dueling game, it was pretty special. Stan says, have I read any of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time books? I need to. I haven't. And I know it's they're seen as one of the best fantasy series of all time. I'm a little intimidated by the length of it. And the reason for that is that I have a lot of ongoing series that I'm invested in. Most of them are trilogies, but some of them are ongoing. And I've pre-ordered at least 10 books that are coming out in 2020. And so I would be remiss to kind of postpone all of them to commit to Wheel of Time for a while. So I think what I need to do is just there's going to be at some point in the future, or maybe there's an extended period of time where there aren't any books in the series that I'm already engaged with coming out. And at that point, I can say, okay, I'll just spend the next 6 months reading Wheel of Time. What would you estimate for that? Like how much time, if I read for 30 minutes every night, I'm a pretty fast reader. How much time do you think I would need to get through the entire Wheel of Time series? Ephraim says, why did I remove the cheese stuff in Viticulture Essential and its expansion? So cheese was never really part of Viticulture. It was an expansion that I included with the original Tuscany, the big box of Tuscany on Kickstarter. And it was actually, I guess technically when I published Tuscany Essential, I wanted to cut it down to what I thought were the core expansions that were integral to making Tuscany a lot of fun, and based on what people actually played from the Tuscany big box. People seem to be playing the extended board a lot. They seem to love the structures, and they seem to like the special workers. Beyond that, very few people were playing cheese. Very few people were playing like the Mafia expansion, things like that. So we cut those out. But they're still available. You can download it from our website, or you can buy them from Print on Demand, playing print and play games. Yeah, they have it on Print on Demand. Brian has a funny comment here. He says, come on, Jamie, I'm down to half a roll of toilet paper. I'm wearing my underwear on my head as a mask. Give us sand hints to pull us through. That's a fair point, Brian. I know you all are suffering out there. I don't want to spoil anything for sand. I'm really excited to reveal it to you. I don't think it'll be something that everyone will be excited about, but for those of you who give it a try, I think you're really going to love it, especially heavier Euro gamers. It's heavier than medium. It's not heavy. It's not medium. It's like medium heavy. So if you're looking for a more substantial experience, then actually Tapestry is pretty heavy too. Yeah, you'll see. There's a lot going on in this game, but I look forward to talking about it. It's still going to be a few months though before I start to talk about it. Team Hotep says, has the virus slowed your game design time down or increased it and helped you? Really neither. I mean, it's kind of been business as usual for us, and especially in terms of the time I spend running Stonemaier games. So I've had actually a little bit less time for game design than I've hoped recently. So I'm working on that. I'm working on maybe delegating a little bit more to Joe, because Joe is fully capable of doing anything and everything that I throw at him. It's just a matter of me deciding, okay, it's time to let go of this and let someone else handle it from now on. Joe, I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. Joe is the first full-time employee at Stonemaier Games other than myself. He just started working in January. And so it's still kind of a learning process for me to have someone else who is fully committed to Stonemaier Games in the same way that I am. Ephraim says, if I could keep only 3 games, excluding my own games, what would they be? I have a video about that somewhere. I can't remember what I said in that video, but I usually yield to just saying some of my favorite games that have a high amount of replayability. I've mentioned, I think, Between Two Castles, or not Between Two Castles, Castles of Magic and Ludwig is always up there. I think it's not a game that's always on my top 10 list, but A Feast for Odin is a game that I think has a ton of replayability, and so that one I think could definitely be up there. As for the third one, I probably want something lighter and 2-player, maybe something expandable. What is my favorite 2-player game right now? I don't know. That would be probably a joint decision between me and Megan, a game that in fact, all of these would be. So 3 games that we could play together for a long time. Joshua says, is making Airship Kai in 2 pieces significantly more expensive than a mini such as the Scythe airships, or is it cheaper? I don't know a direct price comparison. It required 2 molds, which throws things off. So I'd say the upfront cost was probably a little bit more, but the ongoing cost is probably comparable to an airship like in Scythe, the Wind Gambit. Christian says, what's one of my earliest childhood gaming memories? That's a good question, Christian. This is an early one, but my best friend Trevor and my sister and his sister used to get together, and we played Monopoly a lot. And one of my favorite things I'm sure we weren't playing by the rules correctly. I know we weren't, but whenever we had four properties remaining that were unpurchased, so we owned everything except for 4 properties. We would stop the game and we'd say, okay, it's trading time now. And trading time was kind of a free-for-all where we would each take turns bidding on the remaining properties. And we would also have an open exchange, an open market for any of the properties that we already owned. And I really loved that. I loved that. That was my favorite part of the game. And even though I don't have a specific memory of that happening, I know that we did it a lot. And I enjoyed it. I really loved that part of it. We played a lot of games as a kid. We played Neil Bourne. I played a lot of chess. I played a lot of Risk, some epic games of Risk, Scotland Yard. So I don't know if I have very specific memories about them, but I definitely remember getting them to the table quite a bit with friends and family. Sebastian says, what's my current favorite board game from 2020? So let me look at my list. So I keep kind of an ongoing list of games that could make my top game of 2020 list. There's actually quite a bit on it so far. Watergate is up there. And these aren't all games that were released in 2020, but games that I played for the first time in 2020. Watergate, Azul Summer Pavilion, Isle of Cats, Glenmore 2, and Shards of Infinity. I would say those are maybe the front runners right now. But there are also some other good ones in here, including In the Hall of the Mountain King, Flotilla, Silver and Gold, Time Stories Revolution, Underwater Cities, and Hierarchy. Those are kind of all on my list of games that could potentially be on my top 10 list for 2020. Michael says, if I read Wheel of Time, just please stick to the synopsis of Book 10, Crossroads of Twilight. You'll thank me. Interesting. So is there like one book that just isn't good in Wheel of Time, and that's Book 10? Very interesting. Michael says that Wheel of Time is 14 books, and he estimates about 2 weeks per book if you're a moderate reader, 1 book if you're gung-ho. I'd probably, given that I only read for about 30 to 40 minutes a night, it'd probably be the 2-week pace that you mentioned here. James says, if there was one series in the current list you're reading, what you recommend to begin for a new fantasy reader? A new fantasy reader, or for a new fantasy reader who wants, I'm assuming you're not new to fantasy. There's so many. Well, one that I recently recommended, I'll say this, because there are many that would go on my list. But one that I recently really enjoyed is called either A Rage of Dragons or The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. It's the first in the series. There are no other books in the series yet, but there is one coming, I think, later this year. And it was awesome. It was pretty intense. It definitely has some adult themes in it. But it was really good. I've described it kind of and I think the book describes it as a mix of Gladiator. It feels a little bit like the first book of Ender's Game, where there's a lot of focus on this certain game itself, but in a fantasy world. And I love that, unlike Ender's Game, the main character in Rage of Dragons, he is good at what he does because he works at it. He works really, really hard at it. Not that Ender doesn't in Ender's Game, but Ender's also like a genius child. And the main character in Rage of Dragons is not. He is just a normal dude who decided to work really hard at something. So I really, really like that. I don't want to say more than that. I'm probably going to spoil something. But A Rage of Dragons, or The Rage of Dragons, is really, really good if you're looking for a new fantasy series to get into. Colton says, do I enjoy Emo's Pizza? Not at all, Colton. Sorry if you love it, but no, I'm not a fan. Let's see. I'm just scrolling through a few final comments here before I sign off for the day. Thank you all for joining me for this conversation today. It's been fun to use the new Facebook Live setup. A little weird, but I'm getting used to it. Michael says, read the prologue for book 1 of Wheel of Time to see if it'll appeal to me. Honestly, it's not a knock against the books at all. I am sure the Wheel of Time series would appeal to me. I just don't want to give up on all my other series for the time being. Steven says, I hope you don't completely delegate to Joe responding on Facebook and Board Game Geek, because that interaction with you is really awesome. Thank you, Steven. I appreciate that. Yeah, it has been nice to not have to look at every question. But I still do pay attention to threads on Board Game Geek and on Facebook. And Joe knows that he can always call me into the conversation if he thinks there's something good that I can add to it. And I'm always keeping an eye on it as well. But I appreciate you saying that. And I certainly is not something I'm going to give up. Our listening to our customers and engaging with you has made me a much better businessman and a much better game designer. So I need to continue to do that. Irving says, where do I get inspiration for new games? You kind of mentioned a few ideas here, and it really does come from all over the place. It comes from the fictional books that I read. It comes from playing other games or reading about or watching other games, listening to people talk about other games. So a lot of it does come from games. It also comes from TV and movies. Any source of fiction can give me ideas for worlds. And I also love, this is how Scythe came out of. I love just kind of looking around online at art and worlds that artists are building on ArtStation. ArtStation is a great place for it, but there are other places too. Just discovering what these artists are doing and how they're building these worlds. That can give me ideas. That can sometimes make me really want to work with that artist too, and have them build a world with me or let me design a game in one of their worlds. So those are a few, really all over the place. All right, I think we reached the end of the comments here, but thank you. Seeing some good comments about Wheel of Time. Yeah, thank you all for joining me today. Thanks for sorry for the slight delay at the beginning due to the new Facebook Live setup, but yeah, thanks for your questions. I'll be back next Wednesday, and I'll be doing Rolling Realms either Thursday or Friday. You'll see a post about it on the Stonemaier Games Facebook page soon. If you have any further questions, feel free to post them on the YouTube version of this video, which I'll post very soon. That way I'll get an alert about it. Stay safe, stay healthy. Stay by yourself for a little bit so we can all get healthy together, and I'll see you next week. Take care.